Our benefit keynote speaker, AFTD board member Rita Choula, knows the role of FTD caregiver through profound personal experience. Through her role as Senior Director of Caregiving for the AARP Public Policy Institute, she brings a deep professional understanding of the complex challenges faced by all caregivers. Please join me in welcoming my friend to the stage.
Good evening. I know everybody's eating, but one more time. Good evening. Despite the frigid temperature outside, I am so honored to be with you all in this warm and welcoming space to recognize an issue so close to all of us. In this room, we come from different backgrounds and different life experiences. Each of us has our own story. Many of us have our own FTD stories. We are united at this moment in time by our lived experience with FTD and our hope for change. I want to extend my sincere thanks to Don Newhouse and Kathy Mealy for the invitation to speak tonight. I am grateful and humbled. To my family, friends, and colleagues who are here with me tonight, especially my husband Alex and my sister Helen. Thank you for being my tribe. I would not be without you. I would like to ask us all to take a moment to think of the person or persons you are here for today. This includes those living or who have passed on. It can include the people you know here in this room. It could be someone you know and love with FTD or lost to this disease, or someone with dementia or any form of disease. There is power in saying their name, remembering their name. I invite you now to say those names out loud, or if comfortable, more comfortable in the privacy of your heart. Teresa. The name I spoke out loud, Teresa, is my mother. Her favorite colors were yellow and pink. She loved lilies and roses, gospel music, the Beatles with a bit of Prince sprinkled in between. She loved TV, from sitcoms to drama. Nothing could get between her and a good Lifetime movie. And that Victor Newman, he could do no wrong. She loved to read and volunteer, and my mom was the fiercest advocate you could find. She was the one who would walk out of the grocery store knowing everything about the person in front of her and the cashier too. She made the best chicken cacciatore, spaghetti and meatballs, and hands down, the best potato salad. My mom loved to laugh. It was the growing absence of her laughter that stung the most. One evening, my mom called me to her room and began weeping uncontrollably. She looked at me. I will never forget the desperation, fear, and confusion in her eyes. She said, "Rita, I'm losing my mind. Something is wrong. Something is off. I don't know what is wrong with me." She begged me to help her, but I wasn't sure what to do. At that time, I was taking the lead in helping to care for my grandma's needs and thought my mom was just stressed with the current situation. I was 33. She was 58. Over the next few months, it became apparent that my mom was not the mom we knew. Her mood shifted. She began to drop out of the activities she loved so well. She was short with people. Her spending habits went awry, and she just seemed lost. She moved through a few therapists, was referred to a psychiatrist, and was ultimately diagnosed with major depression. I recall vividly her going missing one day, like just gone. We couldn't find her anywhere. I was a millisecond away from going to the police station and having a silver alert issued when I did one more drive-by and saw her walking down the street. After that, my husband and I moved her in with us. The following months included visits with a geriatrician, more psychiatrists, and ultimately a neurologist who diagnosed her with Alzheimer's, or shall I say, misdiagnosed her. Something just didn't sit right with the symptoms that my mom was showing and this diagnosis of Alzheimer's. I was able to get a referral to a neuropsychologist. She specialized in working with veterans with traumatic brain injuries. You see, my mom was the victim of a hit and run a few years before and suffered what we now know was a traumatic brain injury after being thrown many feet and landing on her head. All these years, and no professional ever made the connection. Almost 3 years later, we received a diagnosis of behavioral variant FTD. When I first found out we were pregnant, all I wanted was for my mom to show joy. She couldn't. She just wasn't able to. In fact, it was during my pregnancy that her condition spiraled and the situation at our house became untenable. After a short stint with my sister, we shifted mom's care to a small group home in the community. Eventually, my mom's decline and related behaviors led us to place her in a nursing home 30 plus miles away. It was not what any of us ever wanted. We couldn't keep my mom in community where we lived. We did not have access to quality, affordable supports. Her funds were dwindling, and between paying for child care and elder care, my husband and I had depleted our savings. Our options were limited. We were literally stuck in the middle. My mom loved her grandbabies. Holidays, dance recitals, grandma's room was their room, fully equipped with a snack drawer, sports on the TV, and a window seat to hang out on. I tried my best to normalize our reality. Music and her grandbabies, along with highly specialized care, allowed her to live with dignity. Our goal through this entire journey was to center my mother and allow her to live with dignity, as defined by her in whatever state she was in. She was a person living with frontotemporal dementia. We demanded that she be treated always as that, a person. I stand here today as a woman, daughter, wife, mama, and former family caregiver. My family's story is but one of tens of thousands of who provide care for those living with FTD. As a country, we can no longer ignore the experiences of family caregivers, all family caregivers. This community is comprised of all races and ethnicities, cultures, and gender and sexual identities, which intersect with socioeconomic status, geographies, and so much more. For every caregiver you have seen exactly one caregiver. We need more research to understand the impacts of caring for someone with FTD in a variety of communities and the tailored supports that they, the caregiver, need. Did you know that tens of millions of family caregivers in the US provide 36 billion hours of unpaid care each week? A newly released report from AARP that I am proud to be a co-author on estimates the value of that unpaid care at an astounding $600 billion. That is more than all out-of-pocket spending on US healthcare costs in 2021. Even this is a conservative estimate, as it does not include the thousands of dollars caregivers spend on out-of-pocket costs each year, or caregivers lost wages if they have to take unpaid leave or leave work altogether. In New York State, the unpaid care provided by 2.2 million family caregivers has an estimated value of $39 billion a year. If you are a family member or friend providing care, as I know many of you in this room are or have been, you may say, it's not about the money. I do this out of love. I say to that, yes, and you also may have faced significant challenges in providing that care, whatever your own socioeconomic status. If you were not coordinating home health, caring for someone in a nursing home, advocating for your loved one with FTD, then who would be doing it, and at what cost? It certainly would not be unpaid. Families need and deserve more financial, emotional, and social supports. The care you provide is invaluable. The financial strain of caregiving in general is challenging. Caring for someone with FTD can be overwhelming. When you look at the impact of FTD on annual household income, it is stark. One example from a 2017 AFTD study published in Neurology shows a household income ranging $75,000 to $99,000 1 year prior to diagnosis. 1 year after diagnosis, that household income was down to $50,000. That is devastating. When we look at finances for caregivers across diseases more broadly, we know that family caregivers under 40, as well as Black and Latino caregivers, often have lower household incomes compared to other caregivers, but they have higher out-of-pocket costs spent on caregiving activities such as medical needs, household costs, and personal care expenses. As mentioned, many caring for someone with FTD often face workplace disruptions due to their caregiving responsibilities. This contributes to a generational wealth gap that is hard, if not impossible, to close. This is particularly relevant for so many FTD families who are sandwiched and find themselves caring for children under 18 while also caring for a spouse, partner, or other family member. Family caregivers from all backgrounds find it difficult to talk about their own emotional stress associated with the role. It is so difficult for so many of them to admit the often overwhelming costs that come with providing care. They provide care out of love and a sense of duty. The reality is, providing care so often comes at such a high cost to family caregivers: opportunity, financial, health, and well-being. If you aren't caregiving and know a caregiver well, see if there are other ways you might be able to reach out to help them. It can be so hard to ask for help at the times when we need it most. There are many challenges this community faces, those living with FTD and those that support them in their care. Yet, hope is rising. Hope Rising is the grandmom living with FTD and her granddaughter sharing a tender moment. It is you, it is me. Hope rises as the narrative of what FTD is publicly begins to shift from the unknown to the oh, thanks to the brave sharing of one family's story, which leads to more families sharing their stories. Hope rises when people like tonight's honoree, Kristen Holloway, who in the midst of her own challenges caring for a husband with FTD and raising their young child, chooses to fund innovative research to find treatments and a cure. Hope rises when healthcare professionals receive the education they need and learn to give a proper diagnosis of FTD earlier in the process. Hope rises every time someone enrolls in a clinical trial. Hope rises when we begin to address structural inequities, provider bias, and lack of access to quality services and supports in communities of color. Hope rises through bold acts that shake the status quo. We can create holistic systems that drive action, ultimately leading to a cure and supporting family caregivers along the way. The intentional work that needs to be done to bring about change for those living with FTD and their families may not be easy, but it is critical. By supporting AFTD's work, you are an essential part of that equation. I want to leave you tonight with the sage words of poet and advocate Maya Angelou that are so fitting for this evening. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination, full of hope. Thank you.